What is up to all my Baggins Dragons out there? Welcome to another video, and this one's going to be a little bit different than my normal videos. I'm starting something new. I'm kind of doing sort of a podcast type deal. The reason I'm doing this was because I got a lot of people asking me about silver pouring. Either they wanted to get into it or they just wanted more information on it. They didn't really understand how it all works and the equipment and everything. And so I thought I would do maybe a series or maybe sort of an audio diary on my experiences as a new silver pourer. And hopefully I can help someone out there who wants to get into it, or just maybe help someone understand it more. And this is totally different than my normal videos. This is just an audio podcast type thing. So hopefully you guys out there will enjoy it. I'm gonna make this one here and we'll kind of see how it goes. If you like this style, definitely let me know in the comments so I can make more of these. But this would be good for if you have a long commute or something like that, and you want to listen to someone talk about silver pouring and whatnot. So that's kind of who this would be for. But let's just get right into it. So this first one here, I kind of want to talk about the equipment it takes to do silver pouring. Would be especially good for someone who wants to get into it, or if you just want to understand it better. So yeah, when I first wanted to start pouring silver, well, let me backtrack. I was watching videos on YouTube about silver pouring and just thinking, wow, that looks like so much fun. I have to get into that. And so I needed to research kind of what equipment I needed, and it was actually extremely overwhelming. There's so many different types of torches and furnaces and everything, and it was very overwhelming. So if you're new to it and you don't know what to buy or anything, it can be a little daunting to figure out what you need, but hopefully I can help you out a little bit in this podcast. So let's start with melting the silver, right? Because that's the main thing you need to do in silver pouring. Well, okay, that's one of the main things. You need to melt it, and then you need to pour it, and then stamp it, usually. I guess you could not stamp it, but that, I don't know, to me that just doesn't make sense. So those are kind of the main three things, right? So you got melting, pouring, and stamping. So I'll just tackle melting first, and then we'll see how it goes time-wise. But okay, so melting, you're gonna need, well, I guess there's a couple different ways you could go about this. If you want to buy some torches, you can certainly do that. Torches, you can get different styles, different, they'll heat up to different heats and everything. So you could just use a handheld torch and melt the silver that way with a crucible handheld. Or if you wanted to make it a little bit easier, you could kind of make some sort of, I guess, kiln, or use a clay or bricks or something while you're using your torch to kind of keep the heat in even more. That would probably help a lot with melting it, I would imagine, rather than just having your torch on the crucible out in the open air. I mean, the heat's just gonna immediately go out. So probably some sort of kiln would help if you're doing it that way. Or then you could get a furnace. So as far as furnaces go, you could get a propane furnace, which those are really awesome. You would be able to use that anywhere. I mean, you could go camping and melt your silver out in the woods. That's your power source, the propane. So you just hook it up to one of the big propane tanks and boom, there you go. Or you could get an electric furnace, which is what I ended up getting. They come in all different sizes. You want to make sure you get one that's going to heat up to at least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit or a little bit hotter. I think mine goes up to maybe 2,050 or something like that, somewhere in that range. But mine actually measures it in Celsius, so I'm not exactly 100% sure the conversion. But anyway, so electric furnace is great. All you do is you just plug it into the wall and boom, you're ready to go. So and it doesn't even take up that much power. I mean, it does take up power, don't get me wrong. You will notice it a little bit on your power bill if you're pouring all the time, but if you're making a lot of lasagnas in your oven, then you would probably notice that as well. So yeah, the electric furnace is really easy. It's great for beginners because you don't really have to worry about too much other than just putting the silver in there and then pouring it out. I mean, it kind of does all of the melting for you, which is really nice. As far as sizes go, mine holds up to, it says it can hold up to 1 kilo of silver. I haven't put that much in there yet. I think the most I put in there now is 20 ounces at once, which you can tell when you pick it up, it's heavier. So if I put a whole kilo, which is 32 and some change ounces, then it would be a lot heavier and I would definitely notice it. But when you're looking at, if you wanted to buy an electric furnace, I bought mine off of eBay. It was just a little bit under $300, and they make them in China, and then they ship them, I guess, in bulk out to the USA, and they just got them chilling at some warehouse out here. And so when I ordered mine, it took about a week for them to ship it up to me, and they actually sent me one with the wrong power cord, which is really lame. But I contacted them, and they said it's going to be a while, but they'll send me the right cord. And in the meantime, I bought an adapter, so we'll see if they ever send it. I don't know. But yeah, either way, when you're looking at sizes, especially if you go to eBay and you're kind of shopping around that way, you will notice that gold, a lot of them, they measure the size in gold. So it'll say like 2 kilogram furnace. But, if they're talking about gold, that's considerably more ounces that you could fit in there than silver, because silver is just bigger. It just is. So kind of what I found was if it says 2 kilograms of gold, then it's probably about 1 kilogram of silver. And I don't have all the exact conversions and everything, but that's just kind of what I was finding. So yeah, I bought that furnace and it's working out great so far. I haven't had any issues with it at all. So yeah, that's how I'm melting the silver. And so let's talk about pouring it. So when you pour the silver, you're going to need a mold to pour it into, and you can get different kinds of molds. You could get graphite, or I think you could get iron, or maybe even steel molds. I've just totally stuck with the graphite molds. I'm the most comfortable with those. The crucible that's in my furnace is made out of graphite. And so the first mold I bought was actually the one I'm using for the Baggins bars. But I got that one off of Amazon. I think it was like maybe $16 or something like that. Not terribly expensive. Maybe it was closer to $20. But they do break down over time. So I'm just going to keep pouring it until it either gets a really weird shape or starts cracking, or I don't even know. I'm just going to keep on rolling with it. I do have another one that looks just like it, so I can keep making the bars after that one dies on me. But let me talk silver real quick. So for melting down silver, you can melt down whatever you want, right? You should test it to make sure it's actual silver. At the very least, get a really strong magnet, a rare earth magnet, and see if it is attracted to it or not, because if it is, then it's not silver. So that's one easy test. But and there's other ways to test if it's silver or not. You could do an acid test, or the specific gravity test, and that's for a different video and everything. You could always YouTube that. There's a lot of good videos on to test if it's silver or not. But I would recommend melting down the cheapest you can possibly find. So usually generic silver rounds. You could buy silver shot, but unless you're buying like 100 ounces at once, they do tack on a little bit of a premium for the shot. So that's something you kind of got to look at and just try and find the best price you possibly can. I'd recommend doing the spot deals, melting those down. Those are just generic rounds that they stamp out by the millions, so there's nothing special about those. You could buy them just for the silver. That's what I did. But okay, so you got your silver, you got your mold. I would recommend doing the graphite. For me, that's what I'm comfortable with. It's easy. So that's what kind of molds I would buy. Now, you need to heat up your mold before you pour into it. If you get your silver up to 2,000 degrees, that's actually what I would recommend for pouring temperature. Silver melts at like 1,700 and some change, but you want it to get hotter than that, because as soon as you open the lid on your furnace or however you're melting it, it's going to start cooling down. And so if you have it right at like 1800 degrees, it could cool down really fast and kind of get sludgy while you're pouring it, which, I mean, I don't know, if you're going for some crazy artwork, that actually might look kind of cool. But if you're going for a bar, you're going to want it to get a lot hotter. So it's a smooth pour, and then it has some time to kind of cool down before it starts to harden, which will take, maybe a second or half a second. It's pretty quick, but you're going to want a little bit of time in there. So I'd recommend heating up to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And for me, on my furnace in Celsius, that's about 1094 degrees Celsius. So there you go. Okay, so you're going to want to heat up your mold. If you just pour hot silver into a cold mold, you could actually have the silver pop out of it because it's so surprised at the temperature difference. I've actually seen it happen on videos on YouTube, and it kind of terrifies me. Molten lava silver just going everywhere. So you're gonna want to heat it up. You could get a mold warmer oven type deal. I've seen some people have those. Those are, from what I've seen, more for really specialty molds. If you got a crazy skull round with tons of detail, you're going to want to get that really, really hot so the silver has time to get into all those little cracks to make the final piece look amazing. But if you're just doing a generic bar, then getting one of those mold warmers is kind of overkill. I'd recommend just getting a torch, which is what I did. I just went to my big box store and I got the one that got the hottest. Honestly, I think it said it only gets up to 600 degrees, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So yeah, basically what I do is I just put the torch, I turn it up all the way, and I just heat up the mold a bunch. And then I bought some bricks there as well that I kind of use as a little bit of a stand. So what I do is the torch I have, you can have it on continuous where you don't need to hold the button down, which is also a nice feature. I think the torch and the gas for it cost me maybe $50, but it was the hottest torch they had there, so that's the one I got. But anyway, I set it up on the bricks, and then I have it continuously blowing on the mold for two reasons. One, to kind of keep it warm, but also because I want to get the cool ripple effects, which, I'm not 100% sure if that's more because the torch is blowing on the center of the bar, so that part cools last, and that's why you get the lines. I think that is mostly why it does that. You get the cool ripple lines, but also, just the force of the fire blowing down on it probably has some factor in at least the shape of the ripples. So anyway, yeah, I wanted ripple bars, and so I have the torch blowing on the mold. That's why I do that. I think they look really cool. And then if you wanted, obviously, more exaggerated ripples, you can just tap the mold, which shakes it and will make ripples. Go figure. So that's kind of what I would recommend as far as pouring it and that whole setup. Once you're done pouring it, then and you're also going to need some stone just under the whole setup. I would highly recommend that. You don't want to be doing it right on wood because you could easily spill some or start burning stuff down. So that's the whole pouring and melting and that whole side of it. I hope that's helpful for a beginner out there. The next thing you need to kind of look at is stamping. So once it's all poured, you just dunk it in some water, and then you can start stamping it right away. I would recommend, and I realized this kind of a little bit late in the game, that once you tumble the silver, if that's how you're polishing it up or that's the look you're going for, it sort of hardens the silver a little bit. So if you wanted to stamp it while the silver is still soft, then you need to do that before you tumble it. I just have a rock tumbler, and I'll talk about that later. But you're gonna need stamps and then some way of either polishing it or figuring out what kind of a finish you want to do. And I think I'll save that for the next in the series. This one I'll just keep it limited to the melting and pouring and that whole side of it. So I really hope this was helpful to someone out there who either wants to get into silver pouring, or you know what, if you just like to hear me talk and just for some entertainment, either while you're commuting or just hanging out or whatever, I hope that someone out there is able to enjoy this. It has some value to someone. But yeah, like I said, this is totally different than my normal videos. I don't really ever do this podcast style except for obviously my live streams when I'm doing those. So anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Let me know in the comments, seriously, if you just absolutely hate this. And if you do, you could always just scroll right past it and watch the next video. So, but if you really enjoy it, definitely let me know so I can make more of these. And hopefully they'll be helpful to someone out there. So thanks again, and I will see you all in the next video. Silver Baggins out.